we're gonna add these gear pulleys here. We're gonna set those to the Z-rod, put on the lock collar, and then the bearings, and then we're gonna actually attach the top red pieces so that it can actually sit perfect. Alright, so the pieces you're gonna need are B7 and B8. Which are the same red ones here. We're gonna need all your hardware, which was in the B5 bag, and you're gonna need your last 2080 extrusion, the last 4 L brackets sitting on the top. So here we go. So the first thing I want to do is I want to see how far this bearing needs to sit top, because that is what's going to tell me where this set screw is going to sit. So I'm going to go ahead and get my bearing set in there, my lock collar on top, and then bring it down just to where. Okay guys, I kind of skipped ahead on this part because this part is really tricky to get done. I had to put one of the gear pulleys on. Let me just show you in the manual what I did here. So I had to put the gear pulley on, and then the lock collar, and then the bearing. The bearing wouldn't slide down the actual Z rod until I got the red piece over the bearing, and then kind of finagled the red piece until the bearing sat flush with where it needed to be against the lock collar and the extrude, and then I locked the lock collar, and that's basically where I'm at now. So now I gotta add that little section piece that goes over here first, and then I'm gonna be able to match it up to this and be able to lock it down. So now I'm going to add this part. That screw down. Okay, so now we've put this piece in, and we're just going to just barely snug it to the top section over here of the extrude. This side we're going to go ahead and do the same thing, just snugging it for now, because I want to make this top part square and then adjust the bottom. So let me get this side first actually. These L brackets are so terrible. And what I'm actually going to do with these L brackets again is I'm going to take them out, and we're going to put them on the top extrude hole. So for the top part, I just followed the manual and added them with the L brackets after I set the depth of the bearing and everything with the set screw. So now we just got to add these red pieces and screw them in with the black screws. So now you just take your 4 black M5x20s, and you're going to line up the holes, finger tight these things, and then set them with the Allen wrench. So you get the Allen wrench out. Okay, so after getting the majority of this working, I finally got the Z axis. Finally got it to go up and down really smooth, except it doesn't go down because there's nothing holding it straight. But as long as it goes up even and down even, it stays pretty much good to go. So the way I did that is I actually loosened the bottom L brackets and then brought this all the way to the bottom so that it separated the bottom much as it needed to be for it to run smooth. I'd go up and down and it would work smooth here. So then I tightened those, and then I loosened the ones on top, and then I moved this all the way up till it maxed out, and I did the same thing. I tightened them when it was up there. So now when this rolls in unison, when I do it with 2 fingers, see, it's actually really smooth. So now all I gotta do now is get these Z rods here to sit where they need to in the bearings down there, and then bolt the red pieces on top, and then we'll be good to go. Alright guys, so I got it to move up and down really nice, but you can see right here there's a smaller gap versus the big gap, so it's not technically square yet. So I'm going to actually disassemble everything, realign the Z and the bearings and everything, and then we'll restart from there. Alright, so we're just going to take this top part off. It's Mel!
What you doing?
I got to take the sides off, and I'm going to square the sides up. Alright, so let's overview. In order for me to get this actually to sit flush, if you notice, I had my Z-rods sticking out of here a little bit. So what I did is I took off each side, took out the Z-rods, and adjust against the top red piece here. I adjusted the Z-rods to sit about 16th or a little bit more than a 16th inside of the red piece, so the Z-shaft is going through the bearing enough just to almost sit flush to this red piece on the bottom. And then I tightened the lock collar there for the bearing, and then when I put this on top, it actually straightened it out a lot better. What I also did too is on the brass blocks, I tightened them only to the point where the nut touches the metal, and then there's some Loctite there, so the brass can actually, it's not super snug. I mean, it's still pretty tight on there, but it's not wrenched on. So I did that for both brass bars or brass blocks for the left and the right side. Also, before I put these top red pieces on, I was checking to see if the x-axis was able to move up and down, or the z-axis up and down. And before I did that, I loosened all the L brackets on the top and the bottom corners and made sure that they all ran super smooth, and then tightened them in the position that it was allowing it to be super smooth, and check for squareness. They're pretty much square, so I left it where it's at. And now when I turn these, there's no binding at all. I've already adjusted this up to 3 inches just so it's even for now. I'll probably end up adjusting it to maybe 7 if I can get the heat bit on later. But now that I know my z-axis is nice and smooth, I'm going to leave it right there, and we're going to move on to the x-axis installation. It's not really the x-axis installation, it's more of the hot end installation, because here's that hot end bracket.